My wife, 37F, began a new job about 4.5 months ago, and with it, she started mingling with a whole new circle of friends. To be honest, I, 36M, wasn't exactly thrilled about these new acquaintances. They were all hardcore feminists, professional victims, and social justice warriors. They're the kind of women who would get irate whether you hold the door open for them or don't. It felt like there was absolutely no way to please them. At first, I tried to brush it off with a laugh, thinking it was just a phase. However, over the past couple of months, I noticed some deeply troubling changes in my wife. We've been married for 11 years and have 2 children, a daughter who is 10 and a son who is 8. The situation started deteriorating rapidly. My wife began accusing me of all sorts of ludicrous things, including the bizarre notion that I was born evil because men have historically oppressed women. It was utterly confusing and infuriating. Everything I did for her, simple acts of kindness and gestures she used to appreciate, suddenly became fuel for arguments. It was all so irrational. I tried to be patient and calm, often ending these arguments with something like, "But I haven't done anything wrong. The only thing I've done is love you." This usually resulted in her mumbling something incoherent, but the next day, she'd be back at it with slightly different reasons to argue. About 5 weeks ago, I had this sharp, uneasy feeling that something was seriously wrong. One night, she came home much later than expected without giving me a heads up, and when I tried calling her, her phone was unreachable. When she finally staggered in, she was visibly drunk and distant. The next day, she dismissed my concerns, accusing me of being overly controlling and reading too much into things. This pattern of behavior repeated itself a few more times. I tried to investigate by snooping through her phone, but I didn't find anything definitive, though it was clear she deleted a lot of messages. Then, I stumbled across a thread where she was discussing with one of her new friends about approaching me with the idea of an open relationship. That's when it hit me. My instincts were correct. She was cheating. In the thread, she mentioned she'd bring it up with me on the second Monday of December. Our kids were with their grandparents for Christmas, and we were supposed to join them that day. So, when she casually brought up the notion of an open relationship over breakfast, it was clear she thought it was just a casual topic. Luckily, I was prepared. I had been reading a lot on Reddit and knew that this situation was beyond repair. My primary goal now was to navigate this mess with whatever dignity and self-respect I could salvage. From here on out, it was all about protecting myself and our kids. Rather than losing my temper, I shifted into a tense, steely interrogation mode. Her initial cockiness vanished as soon as she saw the serious expression on my face. Me. Who is he? She. What do you mean? Trying to look innocent and clueless. Me. If you want to have this conversation, don't treat me like an idiot. At least be honest. What's the point of talking if you're going to lie? She. What do you mean? Me. If you lie to me now, we can't have an honest discussion about our relationship. It's clear that you're hiding something. So, who's the guy you're seeing? She. I'm not. Me. Oh my God, so it's more than one, isn't it? She. Me. Don't you dare lie to me. You've shattered my trust. Either you're honest, and we work through this, or our marriage ends right now. No arguments, no discussions, just a divorce. Do you understand? She. But, me, say it. Do you understand? If you lie, I will divorce you. Say it. She. I understand. She finally confessed to having 2 one-night stands with married men she met while out with her friends. I pressed for more details, asking for their names, if they were married, and if she used protection. Both men were indeed married with children. She then revealed she was planning to sleep with a colleague at work because it's good for her, and insisted that I don't have any right to control her. What on earth? I inquired further about this colleague, and she provided his name and his wife's name. According to her, he's married but supposedly in an open relationship, similar to what she wants for us. She even suggested setting me up with some of her friends, one of whom is apparently very eager. Seriously? I've met this friend and wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. I told her outright that I wasn't interested. When I asked to see her phone, she showed me the unlock pattern. As soon as she went to the bathroom, I locked myself in my office, ran recovery software on her phone, and after about 30 minutes, uncovered a lot of painful evidence. I also installed a spying app. When I came out, I handed her back the phone and told her to leave. She argued intensely, but I responded with terse, single-word answers. Throughout this whole ordeal, she showed no remorse whatsoever. Instead, she yelled at me, accusing me of being controlling and holding her back, as if men always held women back. She claimed I never truly loved her, said she had every right to do what she was doing, and expected me to just accept it because it wasn't a big deal. I didn't engage in any arguments with her. In fact, I barely said a word. I simply packed her belongings while she paced around, shouting at me. When I got to the front door, I stood silently, waiting for her to run out of steam. Eventually, she begrudgingly went to her parents' house. As she walked down the stairs, I told her that she was single now and free to do whatever she wanted, and that I wasn't going to control her anymore. My lawyer would be in touch with her in January. When she turned to respond, I slammed and locked the door behind her. Later, I watched as she discussed the situation with her friends. They were telling her how brave she was for demanding what she felt she deserved, and that she deserved better than me. They dismissed my threats as empty, insisting I wouldn't follow through with the divorce. Well, they were in for a surprise. What really alarmed me was their suggestion that she could accuse me of domestic abuse if necessary. One of her friends even boasted about how she had manipulated her ex-husband into losing everything by making false abuse claims. I was stunned. I've never threatened her or acted violently in any way. To protect myself, I ordered cameras to be installed around my house to document everything. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Then, things took an even more shocking turn. She started messaging her affair partner, AP, to arrange a meetup. They agreed to meet at a hotel. I was in complete disbelief. I went online to find the AP's wife. It didn't take long, and I managed to friend her on Facebook. I told her everything, including the planned hotel rendezvous. She thanked me and hung up. A few hours later, she sent me a video. She had gone to the motel and confronted them. From the shouting in the video, it was clear this wasn't the first time her husband had cheated. "You expletive asshole. You do this to me again? To the kids? I told you we were done if this happened again. You expletive." She walked into the room and filmed my wife hastily dressing on the edge of the bed. I felt physically sick the first time I watched that footage. The AP's wife slapped my wife and cursed her out. I sent a message to my wife informing her that I had seen the video from the hotel and that I never wanted her near me again. It's as if she views our situation as some kind of competition, where she's somehow managing to win in her delusional mind. I can't grasp any of it. It's like she's completely disconnected from reality and doesn't understand that our marriage is over. I logged into my wife's family WhatsApp group and notified them of the divorce due to her infidelity. I thanked them for making me feel welcome before I left the group. I've received a few calls and messages from her since then, but I haven't read or responded to any of them. I simply don't have the energy. I called my parents and told them everything. My father then sent a message to my wife, telling her she wasn't welcome for Christmas. I'm now staying at my parents' house, and I've talked to my boss about the situation. He's given me time off until mid-January to sort things out. I've been keeping an eye on my wife's increasingly frantic conversations with her new friends. It seems she hasn't yet grasped the reality that she's lost her family, that our marriage is over, and that her new friends and AP don't actually care about her well-being. She sent me numerous messages and even showed up at my parents' house, demanding to be allowed to celebrate Christmas with us. My father had to threaten to call the police to get her to leave. Now, I'm searching for divorce lawyers, all while battling intense feelings of grief. I feel like I've been in shock, but the pain has hit me hard since I arrived at my parents' place. I'm struggling to make sense of it all. Reading her messages and interacting with her causes me so much pain. I've only responded to her twice. One message read, "It doesn't matter what you say. I don't know who you are anymore. You are not my wife. My wife would never destroy my heart and soul while smiling. We're getting a divorce, and I don't care what you say or want. You have no right to demand anything from me ever again. We are over." In another message, I wrote, "As I said, you are not my wife. I don't know who you are. My wife would never condemn our children to the pain of growing up in a broken home. You, whoever you are now, seem to take pride in what you've done. My wife was loving, caring, and my best friend. You are a self-absorbed abomination." The messages stopped coming after that. The pain is sometimes unbearable. I wish none of this had happened, and I wish I could return to how things were before, but I know I can't do that to myself. This has been the worst Christmas ever. I couldn't help but explain to the kids that Mommy doesn't want to be a family anymore and that she wants to be with other men, so we're getting divorced. They are, understandably, devastated. Thankfully, my parents are here to provide them with love and support while I'm a complete mess. I will try to pull myself together for the sake of the kids, but I have no intention of going back to her. I wish I had waited until after Christmas to get them into counseling right away. I didn't mean to blurt it out when they asked about when their mother would come. I would never be able to forgive myself if I went back to her. The level of disrespect and callousness in her actions is unforgivable. I feel utterly lost. I just don't understand why she thinks she can demand anything from me at this point. Is she mentally ill or something? I found myself obsessively revisiting my wife's chats with her friends. The content was not just painful, it was disturbing and, frankly, infuriating. What finally broke me was reading how my soon-to-be ex-wife harshly characterized her marriage and, especially, her children as burdens. She described them as obstacles that prevented her from achieving her full potential as a successful woman. In her twisted narrative, I was painted as a villain who stifled her dreams and held her back from living a fulfilling life. Her family, particularly me, was to blame for her lack of career success and her inability to indulge in casual relationships. The sheer brutality of her words left me shattered. I couldn't process it all at once. I spent the next 30 hours obsessively reading and rereading every email, chat, and message, trying to make sense of the overwhelming pain and betrayal. Reflecting on it now, I realize that her accusations were shockingly vague. There were no specific examples or concrete details about how I had supposedly oppressed her. I had never prevented her from pursuing any of her interests. I covered nearly all of our expenses, given that her part-time job barely provided for basic needs. I supported her in every hobby and ambition, even though she had a habit of starting classes or projects and then dropping out halfway through. I showed her love and appreciation daily, through romantic gestures, taking her out, and always being there for her. If what she calls oppression is a genuine form of it, then I'd gladly take more of it. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. At some point, my emotional exhaustion led me to collapse. When I woke up, my 3 closest friends were in the kitchen with my dad, preparing dinner. These friends, Jake, Sam, and Tom, have been my rock since childhood. My dad had filled them in on everything, and their support was invaluable. I broke down again, overwhelmed with grief, and stayed that way until Friday evening. Jake, a former military man who lost his left arm below the elbow, had been through his own struggles. His wife had abandoned him during his recovery. Thankfully, Jake eventually found happiness, adopting 2 children and finding a loving girlfriend. He arranged a Zoom call with his counselor, someone who had helped him through his recovery. The counselor's insights were profound. Although he specialized in helping amputees, he explained that many wives leave their husbands when they are injured. His stories helped me understand my emotional state better. He likened my situation to that of an amputee experiencing phantom pain. Just as an amputee might feel pain from a missing limb, I was feeling the pain from the loss of my identity tied to my role as a husband. This metaphor helped me make sense of my intense emotional response. We spent hours talking, and gradually, I started to feel some relief. Sam is an executive at an IT security company. He's always been a tech enthusiast and was often bullied when we were younger. I still don't fully understand his job, but he's very successful. Sam called a law firm that's on retainer with his company, and by Sunday morning, I found myself speaking with a top-notch lawyer. Sam insisted on covering the legal fees, wanting to repay me for the times I took beatings for him when he was bullied. Tom is a teacher at a private school and is married with 7 children. My kids adore him and his family. Tom has been instrumental in ensuring my kids are well cared for while I get my life back on track. His support has been a godsend. Yesterday was a whirlwind. It began with an STD screening early in the morning. To my utter horror, I discovered I have chlamydia. The news required another screening in 6 months. My self-pity quickly transformed into rage. This was the final straw. I decided to go for full custody and ensure she gets nothing if I can help it. The lawyer managed to track down the ex-husband of one of my wife's feminist friends, the one who had bragged about ruining her ex. Thanks to court documents, it was surprisingly straightforward to locate him. I hadn't even thought of that. I contacted him via WhatsApp. He was deeply grateful but also shared the traumatic experiences he endured, which included homelessness and a long separation from his children. Hearing his story was gut-wrenching. This conversation prepared me for the fight ahead. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I'm preparing for a battle. I understand that as a man, I'm at a disadvantage in the court system. Still, I'm gathering as much evidence as possible to support my case. My lawyer suggested filing a restraining order as a preemptive move due to my soon-to-be ex-wife's negative and aggressive comments about men, particularly for the sake of our sons. Growing up in a household with an openly anti-male parental figure is undoubtedly damaging. Therefore, I'm pursuing full custody and instructed my lawyer to proceed with the restraining order. The restraining order should be served today. I had a Zoom call with my soon-to-be ex-wife, who hasn't reached out to me or the kids since the confrontation at my parents' house. The call was bizarre. She appeared all made up, with a plunging neckline that was quite out of character. It was clear she was trying to look her absolute best. I haven't seen her this dressed up in years. Throughout the conversation, she tried to provoke me, hoping I'd react angrily. I managed to stay calm, adhering to my lawyer's advice to ask for specific things. Apparently, it's beneficial to attempt an amicable resolution before filing for a contested divorce. I recorded the call, informing her beforehand that I was doing so. Despite this, she continued her provocations. She began with an incredibly odd comment about 2 types of penises, one that remains the same size whether erect or not, and one that changes size based on erection. What is this? She then went on about her anticipation for the end of current restrictions so she could explore this topic further in person. I told her I wasn't interested in her personal interests and was only focused on discussing our divorce. Her hostility grew when she realized I wasn't taking the bait. She seemed to be treating this as a game, believing she had control over the situation. At one point, she muted herself and consulted with her friends about what she could do next. She cursed me out multiple times, simply for being a man. Throughout the call, it felt as if she viewed the entire situation as a contest, where she was the victor and I had no option but to comply with her demands. We didn't make any progress, so I decided, all right, contested divorce it is then. By the way, I told her, you gave me chlamydia, and unlike you, I haven't been with anyone else. So you better get yourself to the clinic. She looked at me with disbelief. At this point, I have no idea what's going on with her, and I no longer care. I sent the recording to my lawyer, who was stunned. Everyone now believes my wife is unhinged. Maybe she is. Since I own her phone and the subscription, I can legally use the chat logs in court. It turns out it's perfectly legal to monitor my own device. After the call, I saw frantic discussions among her friends, but I've decided to ignore them. I no longer care what they say or do. The lawyer is confident we'll win this case unless there's something I haven't revealed. So here I am. The pain is still there, but I'm learning to treat it as phantom pain. I've stopped feeling sorry for myself and am ready to fight, no mercy. I need to protect myself and my kids. I'm moving forward. My kids will be okay, and I'll make sure they get all the therapy they need. My soon-to-be ex-wife will soon become a distant memory, and I'm determined to rebuild a better, happier life for myself and my children. I keep wishing that none of this had ever happened. I long for a life where my family was still intact, where I could enjoy a long, lazy, and comfortable future with my wife, watching our kids grow up and eventually start their own lives. I imagined a future filled with simple pleasures, family vacations, milestones, and the quiet joy of growing old together. Now, that future feels like a distant dream, swallowed up by the chaos and heartbreak of this separation. In the end, no one is winning here. My wife seems to have lost her way completely, and everything feels like it's unraveling in a fiery wreck. I can't grasp what's happening to her. Despite the turmoil, she refuses to see a mental health professional or acknowledge that she might have underlying issues. She acts as if everything is perfectly normal, displaying a disturbing lack of remorse or regret. It's as if she believes I should simply accept her demands without question, and she's made little effort to maintain a meaningful relationship with the kids since the separation began. The reality of divorcing her and the need to move forward with our separation is overwhelming, but it feels like I have no other choice. Her behavior has made it clear that there's no way back to what we once had. I wish so much that things could be different, but I know that trust, once shattered, can't be easily repaired. Every night, I cry myself to sleep, mourning the loss of what was and grappling with the harsh reality that my children will now grow up in a broken home. It breaks my heart that my children no longer have a functional relationship with their mother. I'm at a loss about how to answer my child's heartbreaking question, why doesn't mommy want to see me anymore? Doesn't she love me? How do you explain that to a child in a way that doesn't further damage their fragile understanding of love and family? If anyone has any insight on how to handle this delicate situation, I'd deeply appreciate the advice, as I feel utterly helpless. Each day, I wake up telling myself that my heart can't possibly break any further, only to be proven wrong repeatedly throughout the day. The pain is relentless, and the reminders of what's been lost are inescapable. My wife still doesn't seem to realize, or perhaps she simply doesn't care, that I'm monitoring her communications. She's convinced that I'll never truly leave her and that my response to her behavior is completely unjustified. She continues to speak disparagingly of me, our marriage, and our children to her friends. I can't fathom why she harbors such intense animosity towards us. We haven't done any of the things she accuses us of doing to her friends. As previously mentioned, my lawyer was able to secure a temporary restraining order against her. We had a hearing yesterday morning, but since there were no new direct threats, the order wasn't extended. My lawyer suggested using the fact that she knowingly infected me as leverage to push for an undisputed divorce. I wish we could handle this process in a more civilized manner, but the reality is that I have to approach her as an adversary and brace for the worst possible outcomes. If she wanted to leave me, I could accept that. But why does she have to turn this separation into such a hostile and hurtful process? What does she hope to achieve by causing so much pain to the people who once loved her? The entire situation defies reason, and I'm struggling to make sense of it. My lawyer has advised us to attempt to reach an agreement for an amicable divorce. I agreed, and we're hoping to meet with my soon-to-be ex-wife and her representative sometime this week. The ex-husband of the feminist friend who defrauded him will spend New Year's Eve with me and my kids, which provides a small comfort amid the chaos. The injustices he faced in the legal system are appalling. Despite providing no substantial evidence, his ex-wife's lies were accepted as fact by the court. He's been burdened with excessive alimony and child support payments, leaving him on the brink of despair. However, the new evidence I've provided has given him renewed hope. We both spoke with my lawyer, who advised that he should hold on to the evidence until our meeting with my wife and her counsel. If he takes action now, it would reveal that we have access to all their communications, potentially undermining our position and revealing our strategy. My lawyer's goal is to finalize the divorce as quickly and smoothly as possible. Right now, all I want is to escape from this turmoil. If my wife decides to contest the divorce, it could drag on indefinitely, adding even more stress to an already agonizing situation. I just need to find a way out, and I'm desperately hoping for some relief. Sadly, the bizarre situation continues. The meeting with my lawyer and my soon-to-be ex-wife, STBXW, was just as surreal as everything else that has transpired. She showed up 30 minutes late, with no lawyer in tow, claiming she didn't need one. Instead, she brought along one of her new friends, let's call her the Harpy, who seemed more interested in taunting and provoking me than in participating constructively in the proceedings. My lawyer had given me very specific instructions on how to conduct myself during the meeting. I was to remain calm and non-reactive, no matter what was said or done. If my lawyer put one or both of her hands flat on the table, it was a signal for me to stay completely silent. These guidelines were meant to keep the discussion focused and prevent any escalation that might complicate the process. When they finally arrived, the Harpy wasted no time in trying to get under my skin. She made snide remarks and attempted to provoke a reaction. My STBXW wasn't much better. She seemed intent on belittling me and making a spectacle of the whole situation. It was painful to watch them laughing at their own insults. Their behavior made it clear that my wife still views this as a game, a charade she believes I can't possibly be serious about. In her mind, only she has the power to end the marriage, and she's convinced that if she chooses to, she will get everything she wants. I was left sitting there in disbelief, thinking, what the hell is going on? I didn't engage much, responding only with neutral comments like, yes, you're probably right, or I'm not sure. It was clear they were more interested in their own little drama than in making any meaningful progress. Eventually, they seemed to run out of steam. My lawyer took the opportunity to present the proposed settlement for an amicable divorce. She outlined a generous offer. I was willing to pay a substantial lump sum of $60,000 for the equity in the house, investments, and so on. Before my lawyer could even finish this explanation, my STBXW and the Harpy were practically bubbling with excitement. Nudged along by the Harpy, my STBXW wanted to know where to sign immediately. She was eager to finalize things and was even discussing when she could expect the money, mentioning that they had plans to go to the pub. My lawyer, trying to keep things on track, called someone in, who turned out to be a notary. We were asked to provide our identification and sign 2 copies of the agreement. The notary stamped the documents, and my STBXW, in her hurry to leave, forgot to take her copy with her. As soon as they were out of sight, my lawyer turned to me with a look of disbelief and said congratulations. She mentioned that this was one of the strangest sessions she had ever experienced in her career. She would send my STBXW's copy to her only after we had a hearing with a judge or if she hired a lawyer who requested it. Until then, it would remain forgotten in her drawer. On the surface, it seems like the divorce might proceed more smoothly than I initially feared. My STBXW could still hire legal representation and challenge the settlement, but for now, it looks like I'm on track for a relatively uncomplicated resolution. My lawyer is working to pull every favor she can to get a hearing scheduled as soon as possible. It will likely be a video call, given the current circumstances. In the meantime, I hired a private investigator based on advice from Reddit. The PI gathered evidence showing my wife making out with 2 different men at separate bars, and later going to a hotel with one of them. I hope this evidence will be useful if necessary, though I'd prefer not to have to use it. The settlement she agreed to was straightforward: a one-time payment of $60,000, full custody of the kids, and no spousal support. It's a relief to have such a clear resolution, but now I need to come up with the funds. Thankfully, Sam has offered to front me the entire amount if needed. I still can't quite believe how things are unfolding. I keep expecting her to pull out some dramatic legal maneuver, like accusing me of child molestation or domestic abuse, just to complicate things further. My lawyer advised me to maintain a very low profile, to keep paying for everything as usual, and to avoid any unnecessary contact with mutual acquaintances. The strategy is to stay silent and wait until the hearing, minimizing any potential for conflict or misinterpretation. So, for now, it's a matter of being patient and hoping for the best. I'm trying to stay focused on what I can control and to prepare for any eventuality. The end of this long, painful chapter feels tantalizingly close, but I know I need to remain vigilant until it's truly over. So, a few weeks later, the hearing finally took place, and I am, for all intents and purposes, divorced. The legal process will take 4 to 6 months to finalize the paperwork, but the outcome is now set in stone. The only way to change this is if my STBXW and I both decide to stop the proceedings, which is unlikely given the circumstances. I'm utterly exhausted, physically and emotionally. I haven't slept properly in days, so if my thoughts seem scattered or disjointed, I apologize. I just need to vent and hopefully get some relief after typing this all out. My incredible lawyer managed to secure an early hearing, just 12 days after we submitted the paperwork. I'm sure she pulled a few strings to make that happen. But things took an unexpected turn from the weekend leading up to the hearing. On Friday morning, a group of police officers showed up at my door with a search warrant for the house. I was completely blindsided and worried about the kids, so I asked if they could let me take them outside while they conducted their search. Fortunately, they agreed. They didn't provide much information at the time, and I was so shaken up that I struggled to make sense of the warrant. It became clear that my ex's erratic behavior might be related to drug use, as many had speculated. The police proceeded to thoroughly search and ransack my home. I called my lawyer, who explained that the warrant was valid, so there was nothing we could do at that moment. Reflecting on it now, I'm grateful for the security cameras I've installed throughout the house. I have footage of everything that happened, which might be useful if any false accusations arise. However, I'm not sure I have the energy or desire to pursue any claims. Maybe I'll just move on and leave it behind. Unbeknownst to me at the time, my ex and her 3 friends had driven my car while high and drunk, crashing it into a house at high speed. They were all arrested at the scene, visibly intoxicated and in possession of drugs. The passenger in the car is in critical condition, and there's uncertainty about her survival. One of her friends, whom I'll refer to as Clara, was the ringleader. Clara had previously boasted about how she manipulated the legal system against her ex-husband, Leo. Leo and I have become friends through this ordeal, and I'll get to that part later. Back to the search, the police found no evidence related to my ex at my house, and I provided a statement confirming she no longer lives there. I told them she resides with her parents, and I had no idea what she was up to. I also clarified that I did not authorize Clara or anyone else to drive my car. When I returned home, I was devastated to see the mess and damage. It felt like the final straw. I reached out to my dad, who came over with a group of 26 friends and relatives. While I sat on the back porch, overwhelmed and eating my mom's comforting food, they cleaned and repaired my entire house. They tackled every room, from washing ceilings and walls to fixing small issues like loose door handles. I was deeply moved by their support and generosity. It's hard to imagine how I can ever repay them for their kindness. Over the weekend, I went from feeling utterly hopeless to finding some solace and strength, thanks to my family's support. Meanwhile, the police discovered more drugs at Clara's place, and her boyfriend was missing. The children were left alone, leading to their removal by Child Protective Services, CPS. Leo was granted temporary emergency custody after presenting chat logs and evidence of abandonment and drug use. Leo is elated to have custody of his kids, whom he has hardly seen in 5 years. He had been raising funds to fight for custody, and this turn of events has been a blessing in disguise for him. Although he still needs to go to court to make the custody arrangement permanent, the odds are in his favor. Everyone expects Clara to face serious legal consequences, especially if her friend doesn't survive. Sam, ever the supportive friend, has set Leo up in a rental apartment. It's been a revelation that I don't know much about Sam's personal or professional life, and I plan to change that. Clara was driving when she crashed into the house, resulting in injuries and drug-related arrests. Given the gravity of the situation, search warrants were issued for everyone involved. Since my ex is still registered at my address, I decided to sell the house and move as soon as possible to avoid any future issues. On Sunday, I received a call from my ex's parents. Their house was also searched, and they no longer trust her after visiting her in jail. They were shocked to learn that she had been lying to them about everything, from partying and cheating to claiming we were working things out. The next day, my ex called me, asking if I could post her bail, which was set at $15,000. Her parents had already refused. After consulting with my lawyer, we agreed to cover the bail with the understanding that it would be deducted from the settlement once it's finalized. The agreement included her mother as the custodian of the remaining amount to ensure she attends court. My ex reluctantly signed the agreement. She was released on Monday afternoon, but from what her parents reported, she refused to follow their terms for continued residency, including stopping drug use and committing to rehab. By Tuesday, she left their house to stay with her new friends. She didn't show up for the hearing. The judge reviewed all the evidence, including the weekend's events, and I was awarded full custody. The settlement remains as we agreed upon, though it will take 4 to 6 months to finalize the paperwork. So, that brings us to today. I'm struggling to sleep, even though everyone is congratulating me and treating me like I've achieved a major victory. But it doesn't feel like a win. It feels like a profound loss. I still love my ex. Even though I know it's over and there's no turning back, the pain of losing her, my best friend and soulmate, feels overwhelming. It's like being asked to celebrate the fact that I've lost both legs but managed to save part of one knee. When people congratulate me, it feels like they're praising me for saving a piece of something that's already irreparably broken. I'm dealing with a profound sense of loss, and it's hard to see the bright side. I can't sleep, and when I do, I'm plagued by nightmares that leave me drenched in sweat. I'm sorry if I'm venting too much. Today, I got a call from the hospital about my ex. She's been admitted after an altercation where she lost some teeth and broke her jaw. It turns out that some of her new friends beat her up because they thought she had shared chat logs from her phone with Leo. They mistakenly believed she was responsible for their legal troubles. I still can't believe she doesn't understand that I have access to monitor her phone. I'll continue to cover her insurance and phone expenses until the papers are finalized. I won't believe it's truly over until I hold the finalized documents in my hands. She has nothing left now. When she asked if she could move back home, I told her, no way in hell. Her mother has also refused to give her any money unless she commits to staying clean for at least a year. They've offered her a place to stay on strict terms, but I doubt she'll be able to manage. This is the first time I've seen any hint of regret from her, but it seems more like a regret that she can't continue her reckless behavior rather than genuine remorse. She said, "I'm sorry I ruined everything, but it didn't feel sincere." She barely made eye contact and seemed more irritated than anything else. I still don't understand why she's destroyed everything for a fleeting high and some random encounters. The whole situation is incomprehensible. I'm going to maintain no contact until she's been clean for a significant period. I simply can't handle any more of this chaos. I'm hardly sleeping these days, and when I do, my nights are filled with nightmares. On a positive note, the kids are doing better. My dad has been an absolute rock through all of this. I genuinely don't know how I'd manage without him. This past weekend, we went to his cabin to ski. It was a welcome break, just me, him, and the kids. It was great to have some normalcy and fun amidst all the chaos. I've cut off almost all contact with my ex. However, I did end up speaking with one of her friends, the one who was in critical condition. She's awake, but in terrible shape. I talked to her nurse, who was disheartened that no one had visited her while she was hospitalized. Her family had refused to see her, which was heartbreaking to hear. I was concerned that the people who beat up my ex might come after me and the kids, so I reached out through the nurse to see if I could talk to her. Despite my better judgment, I felt compelled to understand more about what had happened since my ex began associating with this group. The conversation started off awkwardly. She offered me a sexual favor in exchange for information, which was unsettling. I countered with an offer of $50 for the details instead. From what I gathered, the group of friends my ex fell in with are hardcore drug users and addicts. Clara, in particular, pulled my ex into this destructive lifestyle against the wishes of the other two. She got my ex hooked on drugs and introduced her to a world of addiction and prostitution to fund their habits. Clara and her crew preach about strong feminism and autonomy, but according to her, it's all just a facade to protect their egos. In reality, they're prostituting themselves to buy drugs. Hearing that the woman I loved had become entangled in this lifestyle was devastating. My ex got caught up in the cycle of addiction and started selling sex herself to pay for her drug habit. It's painful to realize how far she fell from the person I knew. She revealed that meth was the primary drug they were using. Her life has become a series of theft, deceit, and betrayal, leaving her isolated from everyone she once knew. Her family has completely cut her off due to her actions. What struck me most was her admission of regret and sorrow over her life, although it seemed hollow, more about her own situation than genuine remorse for the pain caused to others. She mentioned, without any apparent remorse, how sad she was that she survived. She's now on methadone and is awaiting a forced stay in rehab, which her father has arranged. Her father, who was appointed her guardian due to her abandonment of the children, managed to get her committed to a rehab center where she'll undergo a sedated detox. It's strange that abandoning her kids was deemed proof of irrationality, but attempting to end her life wasn't as significant a factor. I haven't canceled her life insurance yet, so she'll receive treatment, albeit reluctantly. I've also offered financial help to her family, ensuring they don't know it's coming from me. I've been worried about the group that attacked my ex coming after me and the kids. Leo, a formidable and imposing figure, decided to handle it himself. He went to the attacker's apartment and confronted them. He made it clear that Clara had given him the chat logs, and since they had harmed someone he cared about, they had two choices: confess to the police or face him directly with the expectation of severe, painful consequences. They chose to go to the police. I no longer worry about them coming after us. I've found a new apartment and will be moving soon. Sam has once again come through with help, making the transition easier. Despite all the chaos and pain, I'm deeply depressed. My friends and family keep me going, and I know I need to stay strong for the kids. I still love my ex, even though I understand we can never be together again. She isn't the person she once was, and there's too much pain between us to overcome. We did have a good life together before everything fell apart, and I wouldn't trade my children for anything. I know the pain will linger for a long time, but I hope I have the strength to endure it. Interestingly, knowing the details of my ex's addiction has helped the kids process the situation. It's easier to explain that their mom is sick and that it will take time for her to get better, rather than leaving them in the dark. For now, I'm trying to focus on making new, positive memories. Leo and his kids are here, and we're about to watch Madagascar 3. I'm doing my best to create joyful experiences for our families and help the kids heal from all that's happened.